Now, when I described the final keyword just a moment ago, I said that we would get an error if we try and change its value. Actually, although this is what many developers say, that isn't quite right. And that's an important aspect of the final keyword that we can now understand because of what we know about how variables are stored on the heap and the stack. When we say that the final keyword means that a variable can only be assigned once, what we mean is that when the variable in the stack is assigned to an object on the heap, then we cannot change which object in the heap this variable points to. The final keyword stops us doing that. So I can't change my C object to point to a different customer. That is not allowed. But we can change the parameters within the object in the heap if we wish. For example, we could change the customer's name. I could write a line of code, set the name of the customer from John to Susan, for example. And that would be perfectly valid Java code. It would change the object in the heap so that the name parameter within the object points to a different string. That is perfectly valid. There'll be no compile error. The object does indeed change its value. And yet we've used the final keyword on the variable C. So in Java, it's actually not possible to completely fix the state of an object and make it completely unchangeable. In other languages where this is possible, this feature is known as const correctness. Const correctness is a powerful concept because it allows us to write much safer code, but I'm afraid this is just not something that's available in Java. Right since the very first version of Java, the keyword const, which in the C programming language is used to achieve const correctness, was made a reserved word. If in my IDE I try and create a variable using that keyword const, let's try and create a string, let's call it h and set it equal to the word hello, and we'll see that this line of code won't compile. The keyword const has been put into what I think is magenta, I think that's the name of the colour, indicating that it's some kind of keyword, but if I hover over it, we'll see that the message I'm told is that there is a syntax error on the token const. Delete this token. So our IDE knows that const is a keyword, but unfortunately it's a reserved keyword that we just cannot use. There was an open issue for a few years for the Java committee to implement const, but this unfortunately was closed many years ago, and it looks like now we'll never have the const keyword implemented. It's a shame that Java doesn't provide const correctness, and what this means is that you have to be very careful in any method that accepts an object as a parameter. If you call a method on that object, you might be mutating its state, and these changes could be felt outside the scope of that method. To understand what I mean, let's have a look at an example. Here I've got some basic code that's going to create a customer called John and then print out the customer's name twice. And the question is this code safe? Well, we're creating a final customer whose name is John, and we're not calling any methods which should change the state of this customer. So it looks like this should be fine. But actually, we don't know this for certain, unless we know the implementation of the getName method. Let's suppose the person who wrote getName created some code that looked like this. Now, this application would provide some rather unpleasant output. On the first call to getName, we'd get the customer's name John printed out, but on the second call, we'd get XXX. Now, the person who wrote getName was clearly a bit crazy when they wrote this, and this is absolutely an unrealistic example because you wouldn't expect a get method to change a value, but that of course is just a convention, and there is nothing in Java to stop us writing code like this. You may well find from time to time that an object you're working with suddenly has incorrect values and you can't work out why, and this could often be the explanation. There is a method call which looks like it's safe, it looks like it isn't going to change an object's state, but in fact it has done just that. It has something in there which changes the state of the object. Because the object is declared as final, this is even more difficult to spot, especially if you are under the false assumption that final objects cannot be changed. We need to remember that it's only the reference or which object the variable points to that can't be changed. Now, many projects impose a coding style rule that says all parameters passed into a method should be declared as final. And as I've already mentioned, from a performance perspective, declaring things as final is generally a good move. So I want to really say here, absolutely use the final keyword. If performance is important to you, then you should be using final. It's not something we're going to measure, but it is something that can potentially have a positive benefit. But don't be fooled into thinking that just because a variable is declared as final, it cannot be changed. It can't be reassigned, but its underlying values can potentially be altered.